Welcome to Once Upon a Coin, documenting the ongoing history of blockchain and cryptocurrency. And as always, I'm your storyteller, Jason Cassidy. Today's story has us continuing our journey through the historical timeline of crypto year by year. And 2022 was a noteworthy year in that a few events took place that brought the collective blockchain world right down to its knees in shock and awe. The previous year had basically been just one long, wild party. But all parties eventually end. And when this one finally did, the hangover that came was absolutely lethal. And that's because some really nasty stuff had to take place before the industry could move on and grow from the lessons it learned in what was the aftermath of the great bull market of 2021. The bear was coming out, and he was royally pissed. This is a story of crypto in 2022.
Sun cast a shadow, a digital line is coming over the mountain and over your mind. Double down your Bitcoin, hang on for the ride. We're moving into the future, one block at a time. One block at a time.
To be honest, the year started out on a pretty good note actually, with Bitcoin hanging around the $47,000 mark. Sure, it had fallen from its recent all-time high prices established in late 2021, but NFT sales were still going strong, so there was a belief that this show wasn't over just yet. Just like in the previous summer when the markets took a short breather before continuing their upward trajectory, many people felt that Bitcoin was destined to hit $100,000 a coin this cycle. And because so many people did believe that, they also believed that this was a great buying the dip opportunity to capitalize on. Well, as history would show, yeah, not so much. Being several years into the future now, it's easy to look back with the benefit of hindsight and declare that we all knew that the top of the market was already in. But back then, in early 2022, there were still bullish signs popping up everywhere, giving people a sense of optimism. Signs like crypto companies taking some of the profits they'd made over the previous year and investing them into one of the most direct forms of marketing known to humanity: Super Bowl ads. And on February 14th, a lot of people got introduced to some major crypto players. Names like Crypto.com, FTX, and Coinbase spent big bucks to get their commercials in front of the 200 million plus viewers who were taking in the yearly event.
And it's FTX. It's a safe and easy way to get into crypto.
I don't think so. And I'm never wrong about this stuff. Never.
And if you're not familiar with the Super Bowl, then I can tell you that over the years, it truly has morphed into something that's half sports and half advertising. While this certainly got a lot of people's attention, it didn't really have the intended effect most were hoping for, as Bitcoin ended the month under $40,000 per coin. One aspect that many cryptonauts had dismissed when putting together their bullish projections was the impact that crypto was having from the macro perspective. It wasn't a micro market anymore like it used to be. Now, big money was flowing into the top assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum. And this meant that crypto was now becoming vulnerable to bigger shifts in the global economy. In the early months of 2022, central banks around the globe began to tighten their monetary policy. They were setting interest rates higher in an effort to slow down the growing inflationary pressures. This, in turn, caused many investors to scale back their risk tolerance in financial markets. This created an environment where speculative investment strategies were now being shunned in favor of more conservative approaches. What this meant was that all that money that had been flowing into the cryptocurrency industry was beginning to dry up. And this was a trend that no amount of Super Bowl ads was going to be able to effectively counter. An example of this took place in March when the Federal Reserve raised the benchmark federal funds rate by 25 basis points. This was the first rate hike since 2018. So now the entire financial world was paying attention. While these developments were non-crypto-centric and the industry basically had no control over them, what did happen next definitely revolved around crypto, and it wasn't a good thing. On March 23rd, Ronin, the Ethereum-based Layer 2 network that supports the very widely popular Web3 game Axie Infinity, had the worst day in its history. Ronin was the unfortunate victim of one of the nastiest hacks to ever take place in crypto. The thieves were able to find a chink in the network's armor, which allowed them to drain Ronin for around $625 million worth of Ether and USDC. US officials came out and declared that they felt the attack was perpetrated by a North Korean hacking collective called the Lazarus Group. With the help of US authorities and some crypto security firms, upwards of $30 million of stolen funds have been retrieved. So while this was a disastrous event, it did have a silver lining of sorts, given that most exchanges aren't so lucky and lose everything. And as we'll learn in this episode, this wasn't the only high-profile hacking event to rock the crypto world in 2022. Oh no, there's a lot more to come. Before the month was over, on March 30th, Bitcoin rallied, hitting the $47,000 mark per coin. This ended up being the last hurrah for the Canadian cryptocurrency, as it began a long and pronounced retrace in value over the rest of the year. By the time April rolled around, the fungible sector had taken a really bad beating. So perhaps it's only fitting that it was the NFT sector that stood up to deliver some upbeat news. On April 30th, Yuga Labs, the creators of the Bored Ape Yacht Club, or BAYC, conducted their Other Side Metaverse land sale. And to no one's surprise, sales were conducted in Yuga's native token called ApeCoin. ApeCoin was launched a month prior on March 17th and went bananas. To give you an idea, on its first day of trading, it was going as low as $1 US and hit a high of almost $40 US. So you're probably not shocked to learn that leading up to this metaverse land sale, the value of ApeCoin rose precipitously. The market had grown antsy in anticipation, and now some level of FOMO was beginning to form, as many people thought this was going to be the ultimate metaverse land sale. Well, they weren't too far off the mark. It's worth noting that there were many issues with the land sale itself, which naturally raised some concerns around Yuga's preparedness. But despite that, the market had clearly spoken, and it was still very much having a love affair with metaverse real estate. Back on the fungible side of things, Bitcoin started off the month of May at just under $40,000 a coin. But little did anyone know that by the time this month was over, the entire blockchain world was going to be looking a lot different. Terra, a top smart contract-based blockchain created by friends Do Kwon and Daniel Shin, was having a lot of problems. The main issue was Terra USD, their algorithm-backed stablecoin that was pegged to the value of the US dollar. The previous month of April had been fine, with the market cap of Terra USD sitting at an impressive $18.7 billion. But what took years of planning, dedication, and hard work took only 48 hours to completely unravel. On May 9th, Terra's USD's $1 peg began to show weakness, and by May 11th, the value of Terra USD was just 48 cents. Do Kwon made public announcements to help assure any concerned holders that everything was under control, and the very next day, Terra USD, or UST as it's known by its ticker symbol, began to recover. It was short-lived though, as a fatal flaw in UST's algorithmic peg was discovered and subsequently exploited. And by May 19th, the value of Terra USD was now down to just 10 cents US, constituting a 90% loss for anyone that was holding UST at the start of the month. It got worse though, because Terra also had a companion token called Luna. Luna was a free-floating currency that was meant to help stabilize Terra USD's price. As word got out that the Terra ecosystem was inherently flawed, investors began to dump the Luna token as well. The sell-off was damn ugly, and God was it fast. It went from $80 US to just a few cents over the course of several days, leaving a heap of smoldering ashes in its wake by May 12th. Naturally, sheer panic began to set in across the entire industry. And by the start of June, Bitcoin was now down to just $30,000 US per coin, having lost more than half its value compared to its all-time high that it had set back in 2021. The implosion of Terra triggered a daisy chain of explosive eruptions within the crypto industry. With the amount of damage it caused, this surely makes it one of the most infamous crypto companies to ever exist. This story is so intriguing and historically relevant that we've actually dedicated an entire episode towards the Terra saga. So I highly encourage you to check out that episode after you're done watching this one. Suffice to say, the contagion was now spreading throughout the industry like a wildfire out of control. Those who were previously in denial about the bull market being over were now getting a nasty wake-up call. The markets were crashing, and it was about to get very, very cold soon with the approaching crypto winter. The temperature dropped down even further when it was Celsius next to be infected. On June 12th, the popular DeFi lending platform suspended withdrawals, citing extreme market conditions. A few weeks later, with conditions only worsening, Celsius made another move when they announced they were laying off 150 of their employees in an attempt to restructure the company. On June 17th, all the mounting pressure on the industry had taken its toll on the king of crypto, as Bitcoin collapsed down to the $20,000 per coin mark. This was a far cry from the incredible price levels the currency had enjoyed just months prior. And the carnage wasn't over yet. Far from it. The next to go was another popular crypto lender in Voyager. On June 27th, they issued a notice of default to 3AC or 3 Arrows Capital, a major crypto hedge fund, for failing to service a loan worth $665 million US. While this wasn't good news for 3AC to see one of its partners go under, they had their own problems because just 2 days later, they also threw in the towel. On June 29th, the firm was ordered to be liquidated by decree of a British Virgin Islands court. And just 2 days after that, 3AC filed for bankruptcy under Chapter 15. Now, if you're sitting here thinking, Jay, what's the big deal? A hedge fund in a top blockchain went bust. The industry can recover. Then you are forgiven for not appreciating the full scope of the problem. Terra's blowup was just the first of many poorly set up crypto companies that were about as fragile as your grandma's fine china collection. Terra and 3AC had a very close relationship. And with the amount of easy money that was being made in the industry over the last few years, this led to a lot of bad investments, risky loans, and poorly constructed tokens. The problem was everyone at the top was making so much money, they weren't interested in hearing about any of the concerns that this was just a house of cards waiting to collapse. Well, that collapse was now firmly in motion. No reprieve was coming, as July just brought more of the same misery. It started on July 5th, when Voyager filed for bankruptcy under Chapter 11. Days later, on July 11th, Celsius followed suit, also filing for bankruptcy under Chapter 11 and screwing over their user base. On July 28th, FTX, the startup that had seemingly come out of nowhere just a few years ago and was now challenging Binance as the top crypto exchange, extended the olive branch to Voyager, offering to acquire them. However, Voyager rejected the deal, calling it a lowball bid dressed up as a white knight rescue. FTX was denied. However, this would not be the last time the industry would hear from them before 2022 was thankfully over. The summer was very ugly, with fear being the predominant emotion ruling the market. Companies had to start facing facts. A crypto winter was coming, and they had better start preparing for it. And prepare they did, as layoffs became a very common announcement around this time. Coinbase reduced its workforce by 18%, laying off 1,100 employees. And they weren't the only ones either, as blockchain.com laid off a quarter of their staff, and crypto.com said goodbye to over 260 of their employees as well. NFTs were not immune to this damage either, and by the summer, it was becoming apparent that they too were going to be having a struggle going forward. To showcase how quick capital left town, in January, the monthly trading volume for NFTs almost hit $5 billion US. By June, that number was now down to just $1 billion US. And by the fall months, that number would be cut in half, coming in around the $500 million US range. In lockstep with this drop in activity, OpenSea, the darling of the NFT-driven bull market over the past few years, reduced their ongoing costs when they laid off 20% of their workforce. If you were working a job in crypto in 2022, then you know exactly what I mean when I say that this was a very scary time. September brought a much-needed respite from all the doom and gloom that was engrossing the industry. Ethereum was undergoing its final steps of its long-awaited transition away from proof of work and over to proof of stake. This was viewed as a big win for two reasons. First, with the network becoming 99.9% more energy efficient, it was great for the environment. Secondly, this was viewed as a step in the right direction towards addressing the scaling issues that Ethereum was having. October was best known for all the high-profile acts of villainy that took place from the massively profitable hacks. When it was totaled up, over $718 million of crypto was stolen. And this time around, it was the DeFi networks that were the favorite target of the digital thieves. In total, 11 different hacks took place, with 99% of that money being siphoned out of the industry and into intruders' pockets from July to September. When I tell you that the second half of 2022 was an utter shit show, I really mean it. The industry was suffering terribly right now, and it was this time, maybe more than ever in its history, that it needed some great news from a major player. Well, the industry got half its wish as a major player made some pretty big news. The only catcher was the news was the stuff that nightmares are made of. And the stars of this show? SBF, or Sam Bankman-Fried, and FTX. In just a few days, FTX went from being the next big thing in crypto to being utterly ruined. Fair warning, this is truly some nasty stuff that's about to unfold. Things started to go south when the CEO of Binance, CZ, or Changpeng Zhao, got involved. He took to Twitter to announce to the world that Binance would be selling their holdings in the FTT token, which is the native currency of FTX. CZ's announcement came on the heels of a November 2nd story put up by CoinDesk that was suddenly becoming very relevant. They reported that Alameda Research, Bankman-Fried's crypto trading company, had an alarming amount of FTT tokens on their balance sheet. When Binance sold off its bag of FTT tokens, it naturally spooked the market that was already on shaky ground, and this tanked the price of the FTT token even further. This fear triggered a panic to get out, with users withdrawing their money from the FTX exchange, creating a liquidity crisis. On November 8th, FTX did what has become all too common in crypto when users trust their coins to a third party. FTX announced a suspension of withdrawals, basically trapping people's crypto on the site. A potential buyout offer from Binance made news, but nothing materialized from that in the end. And so, on November 11th, FTX made the fateful decision to declare bankruptcy as Sam Bankman-Fried stepped down. This disaster tanked the price of crypto, sending it down to the $16,000 a coin level. The FTX collapse, perhaps more so than all the previous ones in 2022, created a tidal wave of misery that followed. As it turned out, Sam Bankman-Fried had been involved in literally every little nook and cranny within the crypto industry over the last few years. Beyond offering generous lines of credit to certain players, he had made a ton of risky investments in crypto that had now all blown the hell up. An example of this can be seen with BlockFi, another crypto lending platform. They had received a $250 million loan from FTX, and now were engulfed in speculation and controversy. On November 28th, they too closed up shop on their users and declared bankruptcy. Even Genesis, one of the biggest institutional lenders in the entire crypto space, was impacted and paused withdrawals. And this put a ton of pressure on some pretty big names that were doing business there with Genesis. By the time 2022 was over, a lot of people were happy to turn the calendar to 2023 and start fresh. Bitcoin was hovering around the $16,000 a coin range and was seemingly living on razor's edge now. The FTX drama would actually carry over into 2023. It was that bad. It's been speculated that the total amount of damage from the implosion of FTX has caused over $9 billion of financial losses spread across the industry. The crypto markets were now on life support, and it would take a gigantic-sized change of fortune to turn this ship around. 2023 was not looking like it was going to have any solutions for the many problems that the blockchain industry now had. But as fate would have it, 2023 would end up having more than just a few pleasant surprises in store for us all. And this is what we're going to be looking at in the next installment within our series. So be sure to check out the story of crypto in 2023. I hope you enjoyed today's stroll down memory lane. Until next time, have fun and enjoy life, my friends. I'll be back soon with another incredible story to tell you.